Yes, I'm Eric Mazur. I'm a professor of physics at Harvard University. Peer instruction is an approach to teaching which is essentially teaching by questioning rather than by telling. The instructor asks questions, the students think about the question, commit themselves to an answer, and then I give students an opportunity to discuss their answer with each other. And in that discussion periods, the students are actually not only thinking about the answer, but thinking about the process that brings them to the answer. And if the question is such that somewhere between 30 and 70% have the right answer before discussion, the discussion often helps clarify problems. Students will have these aha moments. Oh, I get it, during the discussion. Then there's a second poll, and the cycle is wrapped up with an explanation and then repeats. Essentially, it's students teaching each other rather than the instructor just transmitting information. I think it works well because it moves the students away from a passive approach to learning where they're sort of only at the receiving end of the learning to one where they're actively engaged. It sort of defeats a passive strategic learning approach where all that matters is getting the right answer to pass the test. Now all of a sudden it's about critical thinking. It helps develop skills rather than simply factual memorization. I think we need to look at assessment much more seriously, including at meetings such as this, where we bring together experts from all over the world. We're still mostly talking about the input end of education, the approach to teaching. From a student's point of view, the assessment is the most important part. It's the tail that wags the dog rather than the other way around, right? To the student, it's the assessment that is going to drive the study habits. And I think that unless we change our approaches to assessment, it will be very difficult to have a lasting impact on how we teach. So I'm happy you asked this question, and we do need to rethink assessment just as we need to rethink education in general. I see, in a sense, my role as a teacher changed. I'm no longer the sage on the stage, the wise person in front of the classroom. I am, in a sense, the guide on the side, the coach. I'm no longer the source of all information, the person who distributes the knowledge or really the information. I am the person who helps the students develop the thinking skills. That's a big transition. A lot of teachers like to be the center of the attention. They like to be in control. And in a sense, by going from sage on the stage to coach, you change your role. But think about it. This is how we learn all other skills, from playing the piano to become a good soccer player. We don't learn to play the piano by watching somebody else play the piano. We have to play the piano. We don't become a good marathon runner by watching DVDs of marathons that are being run. You have to run the marathon. Likewise in education, you have to learn by doing, not by listening. Memorization is becoming less and less important because if we need information, we have it at our fingertips. We need to just to grab our telephone or our computer and we can find the information. So the need to simply remember information is getting less and less important. Also, who are we to tell what our students should remember and memorize? We don't know what jobs they're going to take. We don't know what information is going to be relevant to them. Information should stick, not because a teacher says, Eric, you should learn this because it's good for you. Information should stick simply by virtue of being used all the time. If you use the information over and over again, it sticks. If you don't use it, you let it go. I can be an effective physicist without knowing some basic facts about physics, because I can always look them up. And if I look them up 10 times in a week, I don't need to look them up anymore the 11th or the 12th time, because I remember them. I remember them because I needed, not because somebody told me, you must know it. So I think that memorization in the 21st century is a skill that is becoming, I wouldn't say useless, but it becomes useless if it's not in a context that is meaningful to the learner. If anybody wants to implement peer instruction, I would start by trying to honestly evaluate how much a student learned from a traditional approach to teaching. I would not have launched into peer instruction had I not come to the conclusion that what I was doing wasn't really giving the results I wanted. So being scholarly about your teaching, measuring how much students learn in a real, honest way is very important. The other thing I would recommend is for people to look at the literature. There's actually a lot of literature on learning, on how the brain works, and most teachers, unfortunately, are never trained to teach. I was never trained to teach. I was just put in front of the classroom. And it's only now that I'm catching up with the literature and finding out how the brain works and how learning works. I can think of many, but there is one that perhaps stands out because it had the most transformative impact on me as a physicist and on my career. And that was discovering, after teaching 7 years in a very traditional fashion, that my students were simply strategically wiggling their way through my course and passing the test, not because they understood the physics I taught them, but passing the test because they were memorizing rote procedures. It was just rote learning. At that point, I realized that all I had done was really train my students to pass the test rather than to learn physics. And that's when I went, wow, I've actually not been a very good teacher all of these years. I've not been training my students to do what they should really do, think critically. And that gave rise then to the development of peer instruction and completely changing my career. This is my second time at EDULEARN. I love this conference. I think it's great how it brings together people from all over the world. I've seen pins in places of the world that I didn't even know existed. There was our French island south of Africa, close to Antarctica, and you have people from there here at this conference. So the energy and the curiosity and the desire to improve education at this conference is infectious, and I hope to come back.